Now, another special technique I want to take a look at here is laddering prompting. And the idea here is to break up a complex problem that would probably require a very long and detailed prompt, which could lead to ChatGPT to lose context and to lose information and produce a suboptimal response, to take such a problem and instead split it up into multiple smaller problems and prompts, which you then send step by step to ChatGPT, so that you get solutions for different smaller prompts, which you can then combine manually to, for example, like in this case, build this Node.js application. And of course, this technique is not just important if you're a developer. Here in this example, it is all about creating such a Node.js REST API, whatever that may be, but it's all about that. But of course, this technique can be very useful whenever you have any kind of more complex problem, since it allows you to get these modular, focused, individual building blocks, which you can get by writing highly specific prompts for the different building blocks, and which you can then compose together to the overall final answer or final program that you want to have. So for example here, instead of trying to create this entire API in one long prompt, which probably would fail or which probably would still be missing some details, which we as the person using ChatGPT might have also simply forgotten, instead of doing that, here I'm just starting by telling ChatGPT that I want a basic Node.js REST API with these 4 endpoints, and that in this first step, I don't want any actual code, instead just some dummy code, since it's really just about setting up this general API with its endpoints. And of course, this specific example here would definitely require some programming experience, because otherwise you wouldn't know what Node.js or a REST API is, or that you would need it, or that you would need these specific endpoints. But again, this is just an example. This laddering technique can be helpful for any kind of more complex problem. So here, for example, in this first step, I would have gotten this output here. Again, this definitely might differ for you, but that's what I got here. And I could, for example, follow this up with this message here, where I now send a new prompt to ChatGPT describing a new problem that should be solved by ChatGPT, some new code that should be generated by ChatGPT. And of course, since I'm doing this here in this existing conversation, these old messages are still taken into account by ChatGPT. So it still has those as context, but it's now focusing on this new problem here, whilst still combining it with that context it already has to solve this new problem, which makes this laddering technique, this laddering prompting technique, pretty effective. Now, of course, we could continue here to build the overall application, but that's of course not the goal of this lecture or section here. Instead, the goal was to make sure that you are aware of this laddering technique, that you know this strategy, and that you're able to use this strategy in cases where you have a very complex problem that you want ChatGPT to solve. Because in such cases, it's often better to break it up into multiple smaller prompts and problems instead of sending one huge prompt in one step to ChatGPT.